In many of my videos, I've mentioned that both men and women have masculine and feminine energy at the same time. But then, how can we unlock both potentials inside us? Well, here you will find out how this polarity works and how can you unleash the power of both within you. Welcome back, my body language buddies. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy, and it would be great if you join us by just liking this video, subscribing, and hitting that bell. Let's get down to it. First of all, there is one concept that we have to put aside, that is gender. We are not gonna think about masculine and feminine in terms of gender, but more in terms of polarity. You can think of a magnet that has two poles, and it will be a nice representation of any human being. But I always prefer a symbol that I've mentioned a couple times, and it's the yin and yang. And the beauty of the yin and yang is that it can represent both one person with both polarities in a constant dynamic flow, and it can also represent a couple. If there is any word that can help us in this journey, it is complement. This is regardless of how is your preference about what makes a man masculine and what makes a woman feminine, because that external manifestation in many ways would be a direct result of how these two polarities function inside the person. Now, in order to understand how masculine and feminine energies work together, we have to go beyond our magnet model. It will be much easier if we think of the evolution of a city. Imagine a city that starts like a small settlement, just a tribe of 20 to 30 families that decide to settle on a valley just beside a river. Now let's fast forward 300 years and let's imagine that you've got a full city with millions living and thriving in the same expanded spot that the original tribe settled. You can guess that in order to reach that developed state, there had to be at least two forces cooperating to make it sustainable. Let's call these two forces expansion and development. Our small tribe started small, but as time went by, it needed more resources to thrive. So its members either expanded their geographical domain or made better use of the resources that were within reach. Ideally, you would need a balance between both strategies or energies. This is when we make a connection to our masculine and feminine polarities. Expansion is the best representation that we can have of the masculine polarity, and development is the best one that we have for the feminine one. In fact, it would be easy to imagine the men of the tribe focus on exploring and expanding the boundaries, while the women make sure to focus on development of the families and the best use of resources. Let's go one step further and let's introduce conflict. If the exploring men stumbled upon a wild beast, there was no negotiation to be made. They had to use force. Meanwhile, if the women found conflict back at the settlement between the members of the tribe, they will make sure to solve them with negotiation. I know this sounds rather simplistic, but bear with me on this. This is the best way to picture how we arrived at the first masculine and feminine traits that are hardwired into men and women. Men are explorers, adventurers, and we tend to solve problems with force. Women, on the other hand, focus on nurturing relationships and tend to solve problems with negotiation. Now, let's think of the masculine and feminine polarity again, and remember that inside us we have access to both energies. And there's a great example of how one gender can exploit their opposite polarity. Maybe you saw the movie The Wolf of Wall Street, where Jordan Belfort was a very aggressive con man whose priority was make money. That being so driven to make money, to grow financially, sounds a lot like our original tribe, the men that were focused on expansion and getting more and more territory. But what's funny is that Belfort got all that money in a way that has to do more with negotiation, sales, and persuasion than brute force. And you already know that negotiation and persuasion are feminine energies. Like the guys at Mad Men, who were all about advertising, focused exclusively on persuasion through emotions. So they built that emotional relationship between brands and their customers. I mean, they were as manly as they could get, but they'd excelled at channeling the feminine skill of persuasion. That's why I told you it's important to separate the external manifestation of that unique mix from our internal balance between the yin and yang, between the masculine and the feminine within us. Now, your mix between the two energies, my mix and everyone else's, is different. It could even change as we grow and mature, but that's our first key to unlock both energies, and it's first and foremost identifying how do we react to conflict. Remember our thriving city that had two energies, expansion and development. Let's take that analogy one step further and we will get two more concepts: power and relationships. And these two terms differ a lot, just because the achievement of power over the elements, power over the circumstances, is a solitary endeavor, while relationships obviously refer to our gregarious nature of having a group, a family, a circle of trust. Again, power refers to the masculine and relationships refers to the feminine. And nowadays it's even harder to imagine any person who doesn't have a mix of both. But then we have to face the harsh reality. Focusing on power will hurt your relationships, and focusing on relationships will hurt your power. I don't make the rules. There's no way around this. You can opt for a middle ground. Maybe you have a very tight circle of family and friends, and your aspiration for power, for financial growth, and achievement is not that ambitious. That's up to you. But most probably you will feel some sort of calling that will not be that middle ground. And that's when things can get a bit complicated. Imagine a woman who is not afraid to jeopardize the stability of her relationships by going into conflicts head on. No negotiations. For example, one of her friends does something that really hurts her and she decides to react. And this woman is not going to negotiate or nurture or speak softly. No, she just goes and says what she feels, and she is aware that her friend could easily walk away from her. In this case, she's prioritizing her power over her circumstances, over the relationship with this person. She's embracing her masculine polarity when dealing with this conflict, and she's doubling down on it. Ironically, this will help her nurture better relationships because she will have no problem to openly tell off hypocrites. So yes, maybe her circle of friends, her circle of trust will be small, but will be a really tight bond because at the same time she will value when people openly speak out to her. Did you see what just happened? She used her masculine energy and in the end she's improving her feminine polarity, her relationships. It's the same that happened with the example of Mad Men or The Wolf of Wall Street. They used their feminine energy so they could fulfill their desire of financial growth and power, their masculine polarity. Now, the answer to the question, how can you unleash this power? How can you know how to use your masculine and feminine energies for your advantage? Well, the easiest way is to identify how do you usually react to conflict. Because conflict is what polishes our character. That's when we learn to use the cards that we were given at birth. But the problem is that we live in a society that is going to be judging you at every turn. And if you're a man, you're expected to face conflict head on, testosterone pumping and everything. And if you're a woman, you're expected to be more mindful of relationships, family, friends, neighbors, co-workers, everyone, even if it means to put your mental health at risk, and that is insane. You need to have a serious reflection about how you choose to react to conflict, because that is all you need to identify your own mix between masculine and feminine polarities. Maybe you're a man that doesn't like direct conflict and can find other ways to have things to go your way. Or you're a woman who's tired of all the relationship hypocrisy and red tape and prefer to be straight to the point in a no-nonsense approach. The only person that has that answer is yourself. And either way, society is going to judge you no matter what, so you might as well do things your own way. You might think that it's a good idea to develop the skills that you don't have, and that's correct to some point. Both men and women should be able to use both masculine and feminine energies depending on the situation. But first, we need to recognize our own unique mix and put it to the test. Because just recognizing our own flow will do wonders with how we deal with our circumstances, and that will be a big step towards self-knowledge. If you want to refine your observation skills, all you have to do is download my 100 body language tips right in the description of this video. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas, and it will always be a pleasure, my body language buddies. Much love and bliss.